Thank you for participating in Morehead at Home Skywatching, hosted by Morehead Planetarium and Science Center. My name is Amy Sale, and I'm an educator at Morehead. We are a unit of the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, located on campus, and we also work throughout the state through a number of science outreach initiatives, like our mobile lab van, summer camp programs, and the annual North Carolina Science Festival. Our mission is to help people better understand science, technology, and health, and we do this through engaging learning opportunities like this live virtual event. Thanks for joining us for today's program, Vacation Destinations in the Solar System. And Nick will get us started.
Thanks, Amy. Hey, everybody. I'm Nick Eakes. I'm an astronomy educator at the Morehead Planetarium and Science Center, and we're excited to have you with us today for Morehead at Home Skywatching. So we miss seeing you on UNC's campus in our full dome theater. We miss seeing you at your schools during our outreach programs. We miss seeing you at special events and North Carolina Science Festival events. So we're hoping that you're finding your own moments of joy at home right now. And we thought, one of the ways that we find joy in our everyday lives is by looking up at the sky. So if you've visited us in previous lessons, you know that we're trying to simulate a planetarium experience here on a flat screen for you at home. And that's what we're going to do today as well. We're using a program called Stellarium. It's a free program to download. You can go to stellarium.org. And we're going to kind of simulate what things would look like today and tonight. But as Amy mentioned, our theme is a vacation through the solar system. So you've probably heard that term solar system before, but you might be thinking, what is a solar system? I like to define a solar system as a star and all of the things that the star pulls into orbit around it. So stars have a pretty big influence on the space around them. And we have a question for you before we start moving ourselves forward. Before we pop our question up, I will show you what the sky looks like. Our question for you is, how many stars are in our solar system? So in just a moment, you should see a poll question pop up there. Take a moment, if you can, and try to answer how many stars are in our solar system. Our four options are 0, 1, millions of stars, or nobody knows. So we'll give you just a second to maybe submit your answers to how many stars are in the solar system. And just give it your best guess. We're going to try to give you the right answer here in a moment. All right. So as you're answering that, you might also be looking at your screen. You can see that in Stellarium, we're looking at a daytime sky. You can tell that it's daytime because there are some bright things and we can't see the stars. So I'm actually going to move our time forward just a little bit. You might notice that our clock down here has sped up. In the real world, it doesn't quite do that. But here in our virtual world, we can time travel a little bit. So I want to move us forward in time just a little later in the afternoon. And oh, it looks like we have some results. Nobody said that there were 0 stars in our solar system. It looks like a few of us said that there are 1, a few of us said that there are millions, and a lot of folks said no one knows. Well, it turns out that the answer to that question is that there is 1 star in our solar system. And I know that's so tricky because we look up there and we see so many stars in the sky. It's easy to think no one knows, or there are millions or billions. But in our solar system, there's 1 star, and it's kind of like the boss of our solar system. And right now on your screen, you can see it. That 1 star in our solar system is the sun. So here's our sun. On our Stellarium screen. I'll give you a warning, in the real world, you're not going to want to look up with your eyes at the sun. You never want to point a telescope or binoculars or anything at the sun because its light is so bright that it could hurt your eyes. Some folks can use a very special solar filter to make it so that it's safe to look at the sun, but otherwise we should never be looking at it. But today here in Stellarium, it is safe for us to look at the sun because we're on a virtual screen. So I'm going to pass it over to Amy so we can talk a little bit about what the sun's made of and maybe some cool fun facts.
Yeah, so we are taking a vacation through the solar system. We're not going to stop at every possible location, but As Nick said, this is the boss of our solar system, the sun, so we should consider it for a moment. You can think of it as a ball of hot glowing gas at the center of our solar system. And of all the stuff that's in our solar system, almost all that stuff is in the sun. And Nick has zoomed in on it, and looks like we're seeing a view with some sunspots. And the sun is really big. You could put more than 1 million Earths inside of it. It's also really hot. The part that you see, the visible surface of the sun, is 5,500 degrees over 5,000 degrees Celsius. That is way hotter than your oven can get at home. And inside, it's even hotter. At the core of the sun, 15 million degrees Celsius. That's 27 million degrees Fahrenheit. It's so hot and there's so much pressure inside the sun that the sun can fuse hydrogen into helium. That's called nuclear fusion, and it releases a whole lot of energy and light and heat. And you know what, Nick? I think we're gonna get burned up if we spend too long at the sun. So maybe we should move on in our vacation.
I know I was starting to get warm and toasty there, so thanks for suggesting we get away from the sun. One thing I forgot to mention as we're moving forward is that if you guys have questions during this, you can ask them to us using the question and answer function that's right down at the bottom of your screen. So after we go through some of these things and kind of finish up, we'll take some time to answer questions. So I wanted to make sure to remind you of that. Use the Q&A function right down there at the bottom of your screen.
And I see that somebody has already submitted a question, and we will be getting to as many as we can at the end. So Nick, it looks like you're speeding up time. You're gonna take us, get that big bright star, bright appearing star of the sun below the horizon so we can see the other stars. And you might also notice the moon. I'm hoping some of y'all were out last night after it got dark. The moon was beautiful, and you can see it tonight. It's clear where you are. So maybe we should visit the moon next.
Yeah, that seems like a good vacation destination. Let's zoom in.
It's a waxing crescent. Waxing just means getting more and more illuminated each night. The side that we see, crescent, is that kind of smile or banana shape. And this is our closest neighbor to us on Earth, the moon. And this is the only, of all the vacation destinations we're going to be visiting virtually today, this is the only one that human beings have actually been to directly. So people have walked on the moon. And we wanted to mention that people who have been to the moon have also been to Morehead Planetarium and Science Center. 62 of the early NASA astronauts, including people who went to the moon, trained in our planetarium dome and learned about the stars and how to tell how their spacecraft was oriented in space. Your visit to the moon would be pretty amazing. There is gravity on the moon, but it's much less than on Earth. So say if you really like to play sports at home, you might find that while on the moon, you can jump even higher. You might be able to kick that soccer ball even further. But you'll also find you really need a good spacesuit there. There's not really any air to breathe, and there's not, it's just not the same amenities that we have here on Earth. Nick, I don't know if you wanted to add anything else.
Not quite. Well, the one thing that I can think of is a lot of times when I go on vacation, I like to go in the swimming pool or swim in the ocean or something like that. And we don't have swimming pools or oceans on the moon either. Early astronomers thought that these dark areas were big bodies of water. But now we know that they're actually kind of flat, dried parts of the moon that we call Maria. And that word Maria actually means seas or oceans. So those early astronomers maybe thought it was a good vacation destination with swimming pools too. But we know maybe there is a little bit of water frozen in craters or something like that on the moon, but no big pools of liquid water.
All right. Well, why don't we check out another destination? If it's clear where you are tonight, be sure to look for the moon. You can notice it actually before the sun sets. It is up partly in the daytime today. But then right after the sun sets, maybe even within 10 minutes after sunset, I noticed it 8 minutes after sunset last night, there's a really bright planet, Venus. And it's in the same direction of the sky that the sun sets. And it's up for a few hours after sunset. Very, very bright. Why don't we zoom in Our vacation to Venus isn't going to go too well, I'm afraid. Venus has been called Earth's twin. It has superficially a lot in common with Earth, about the same size, made of about the same stuff. But Venus is like Earth's evil twin. So everybody right now, think about the hottest place you have ever been to on Earth. What's the hottest place you've ever been to? To me, I'd say maybe Phoenix, Arizona. Oh, I've been to St. George, Utah. It was like 113 degrees one day. What about you, Nick? The
Oh,
hottest place you've ever
goodness.
been to?
I think, I've been to some hot places, but some of the hottest places I've been are right here in North Carolina, say in the middle of summertime when you park your car and go into the grocery store and you come back to your car and it's so much hotter than it is outside. Sometimes I feel like that's the hottest place on earth.
Yeah, so that's kind of the greenhouse effect that happens there when you're in that hot car. Well, Venus has a pretty serious greenhouse effect. Today's forecast for Venus, high temperature of nearly 900 degrees Fahrenheit. That's a thick cloud layer you're looking at there with Venus. By the way, you can also see that Venus goes through phases similar to the moon. So your visit to Venus is not going to go well. The heat is going to scorch you to death. It also has a crushing atmosphere. It's also going to poison you. The atmosphere is made mostly of carbon dioxide. Also, there's some nice sulfuric acid droplets. That's the stuff in battery acid. So, also part of the atmosphere has really strong winds, hurricane force winds. So I think we better not spend too long on Venus. Nick, maybe we should move away.
It kind of feels like the sun to me. I don't want to get too close.
All right, well, in terms of other planets that are in the night sky tonight that we might consider for our vacation destinations, I think we're going to have to stay up really late and move on through the night.
Yeah, so we're cruising time forward. Of course, this is faster than it would move in the real night sky. You might even, on your home screen, see some satellites zipping through the sky. That's something that we can see in the real world too. But as we get closer to the morning, I wanted to mention one thing, because at the very beginning, we said that a solar system is defined as a star and all of the things that orbit around it, or everything that's bound by its gravity. We're mostly focusing on vacation destinations in our solar system, but one of my favorite things that I've learned is that there are other planets out there too. You might see some of these tiny green dots. These are indicating or showing stars that have their own planets orbiting around them. We call these planets going around other stars exoplanets. And you can kind of think of it like every star you see in the night sky, or most stars you see in the night sky, have their own system of planets. The trouble is we can't make a really good guide to vacation destinations on exoplanets because they're so far away. We don't have a ton of information on what their temperatures are like, what their surfaces are like, but we're starting to learn more and more. So if you're an interested researcher, if you're a student who wants a fun project, I would definitely suggest looking into planets that orbit around other stars, or exoplanets, extrasolar planets.
And Nick, I'm noticing in the Q&A, some people are asking questions about, wait, what? The sun is the only star? And the sun is the only star in our solar system, but our solar system is a very small part of our entire galaxy, the Milky Way. All these stars you see at night, they're elsewhere in our galaxy. And our Milky Way galaxy is one of only, many, many, many galaxies in the entire universe. So yes, there are many, many, many more stars out there, but only one of them is in our own solar system. Great questions. All right, we're staying up pretty late here. So for those of you that like to pull all-nighters, or you like to get up so early that it's still dark out, we're gonna show you the sky. And you'll see that 3 more planets popped up: Mars, Saturn, and Jupiter. Shameless plug, join us on Thursday to learn more about planets and how to find them. All right, Nick, what do you think? Maybe Mars next?
Sure, that's the next stop in the solar system. Okay, let's zoom in.
Okay, there's Mars, the red planet. And we humans have not been to Mars. There's talk about going, but we haven't done it yet. We have sent a lot of spacecraft there, but when humans go, they're going to bring a lot of stuff. You're going to want to pack some oxygen. You might want to pack some soap and water too, because Mars can get pretty dusty. but there's lots to see and you'll have lots of time to do it. The day is half an hour longer than on Earth, and the year is nearly twice as long as Earth's year. And there's lots of stuff. So like Earth, Mars has volcanoes and canyons, but whereas we have Mount Everest, Mars has Olympus Mons, which is 3 times as tall as Mount Everest. And whereas Earth has the Grand Canyon in Arizona, Mars has a canyon that is as long as the United States is wide. So I do recommend Mars as a tourist destination, but again, you'll definitely need a spacesuit and lots of supplies.
And who knows, maybe one of you watching right now will be the first astronaut that visits Mars as a vacation destination. Why not? You know, NASA and other space agencies have plans and are working on plans to send human beings to Mars. We just want to make sure that they can get there safely, do their science work safely, and get home safely as well. So we'll see this vacation destination again, I'm sure of it. Okay, what do you think? Another planet, Amy?
I think we should go to Jupiter.
Okay.
Let's check out Jupiter, the king of the planets, biggest planet in our solar system. Now, this is going to be a tricky place for us to visit because Jupiter doesn't have a solid surface for our spacecraft to land on. It's mostly a giant ball of gas and liquid with a rocky core. The atmosphere is going to poison us, crush our spacecraft. Oh, the weather's really bad too. Jupiter's got this great red spot, this storm that has been happening for at least 300 years, and it's bigger than planet Earth. But the years are long. The farther away you are from the sun, the longer it takes to orbit the sun. So Earth takes 1 year to orbit the sun. That's the definition of a year, Earth's orbit around the sun. Well, Jupiter takes the equivalent of 12 Earth years to orbit the sun. So if anybody out there watching is 12 years old on Earth, well, if you'd lived your whole life on Jupiter, you'd just be 1 year old. So I don't know, that crushing our spacecraft thing didn't sound so good, so we should probably pull away. You'll notice that as Nick is zooming out a little bit, that there are some moons. Those dots around Jupiter are some of Jupiter's many moons, and you can see up to 4 of those moons, Io, Europa, Ganymede, Callisto, in a telescope. So if you have a telescope at home, take a look at Jupiter sometime. Okay, I think we have one more place we wanted to go. And it's Saturn, and I think many of you probably know what Saturn is famous for. Those rings. So visiting Saturn is going to be a lot like visiting Jupiter. No solid surface for our spacecraft to land on. You're going to get poisoned and crushed. However, from Earth, like in your telescope that you might have at home, you'll see those rings, and they look solid. But if you were observing from close enough up, if you were actually at Saturn, you might see that they're actually billions of individual pieces, mostly made of water ice. And here would be a fun thing to pack with you. If you could somehow take on your trip to Saturn a really, really, really big bathtub, fill it up with water, and then plop Saturn in it, Saturn would float because it's less dense than water. But of course, it would leave a ring. That was a bad astronomy joke.
We miss telling you our bad astronomy jokes, so you're subjected to them here.
Oh, and Nick, I wanted to mention a year on Saturn is the equivalent of 29 and a half Earth years. It turns out Nick would have just recently turned 1 on Saturn.
Yep, I just passed my 29 and a half and on to the next one. So I'll stick with 1 Saturn year. I think that looks good on me. Okay, let's zoom out. All right, so as far as the planets that we can see in our nighttime sky tonight, that's all of our vacation destinations. But before we have a sunrise and before we try to take some of your questions, I think it's a good time for us to kind of remember that even though we love traveling through the solar system, even though there are so many interesting things about each of these planets, we probably live on the most special planet. The Earth that we're on right now is our home. It has air we can breathe, water we can drink, food we can eat, friends that we can interact with, and it's the safest place for us in the solar system. So all the time, I know people ask Amy and I what our favorite planet is, and I love Saturn. I love Mars. I love even thinking about dwarf planets like Pluto, but my favorite planet is the Earth.
So no place like home.
Exactly. So as we move, let's give you guys a sunrise here. So in case you're an early riser, we'll simulate what that'll look like a little bit after 6:30 a.m. All those planets get washed out by the bright light from our sun. So we hope you enjoyed your trip through the solar system. Of course, there are many things out there that we didn't get to talk about. So if you do have a question about an object or something you're really curious about, put it in that Q&A box. We'll try to get to some of these in just a moment. But we have a question for you first. After seeing some of those destinations in the solar system, which one of those planets would you most like to visit? So you should see a poll popped up there on your screen. We'll give you guys just a couple minutes to look at that, maybe choose your favorite destination. Remember, our options are the sun, our star, the moon, our closest neighbor, Venus, Earth's twin or Earth's evil twin, Mars, the red planet, maybe our future vacation destination, Jupiter, the king of the planets, the largest planet in the solar system, or Saturn, the jewel of the solar system with those big, beautiful rings. So take your pick. Maybe we'll see where y'all would like to go.
All right, and while you all are taking your pick, if you have been intrigued by our vacation through the solar system and you want to try to replicate this at home and also take a nice walk in your neighborhood, you can take a 3.6 billion mile walk in your own neighborhood if you scale down the distances a lot. And you can find out more at the North Carolina Science Festival website, so ncsciencefestival.org. And if you look for the information on the virtual statewide star party, you'll find some links to activities that you can do at home. And one of them is take a solar system walk. And I'm also going to write a blog post about that this week. So if you go to the Morehead Planetarium website and look for our blog sometime in the next couple of days, you'll find out more about how you can take a walk through the solar system, and you can scale down all the sizes. The sun would be like the size of a soccer ball on our scale. And then you can find little objects around the home to represent the planets. And then you can walk it all out to scale and walk back and get back by dinner. Okay, oh, and our poll results. Oh, Nick, it looks like Mars is very popular.
Good.
And after that, the moon, and then Saturn, and then Jupiter, and then it looks like only a few people wanted to brave either the sun or Venus.
We're thinking about that summertime weather, I think, if we want to go to the sun or Venus. Well, very cool. Thank y'all for giving us your suggestions there. I'm kind of glad that Mars won because before too long, we might get that wish. So with our last little bit of time here, we want to try to answer some questions for you. I see a number of great questions in here, so we're just going to kind of start, and Amy and I will try to get to as many of them as we can. So the first one that I see here is a question from Daniel that says, how many exoplanets have we discovered other than the ones in the Alpha Centauri star system? So Alpha Centauri is one of the closest stars to us. So turns out that we've discovered thousands of exoplanets. And we think that there are even more than that. So I don't have a really exact number for you. I'm sure if we went to maybe the website for the Kepler Space Telescope or something like that at NASA, we could get a really exact number for what the exoplanet count is right now. But in general, we say that there are thousands that have been discovered because we keep finding more and more. So when I say thousands of planets, that doesn't necessarily mean thousands of Earth-like planets. Some of these planets might be gas giants like Jupiter. Some of them might be rocky like Mercury. And some of them might be in the habitable zone or the place around a star where life could exist. Now, we're not saying that it's definitely happening, but it's kind of interesting and fun to think about maybe some of these planets around other stars are like our Earth. Okay. So that's a really great question. There are thousands of other exoplanets out there.
And Nick, I'll just jump in that I just got to the exoplanet exploration page that NASA has, it's 4,152 confirmed exoplanets.
Wow. So yeah, maybe keep up with that number, everybody, and see how that grows in the weeks and months to come. Okay.
All right, many interesting questions. Oh, somebody said, how did Pluto disappear? We have good news. Pluto is still there. It's just not considered a planet anymore. It's now considered a dwarf planet. So the International Astronomical Union in 2006 said, Pluto, you want to be a planet, you have to meet 3 rules, 3 criteria. Number 1, you have to orbit the sun. It does that. Number 2, you got to be round. They said it fancier than that. They said you have to have achieved hydrostatic equilibrium. It just means you got to have enough stuff to pull yourself into a round shape. Pluto's round. But number 3 is where Pluto fails the planet test. It's just orbiting with too many other friends. It's not dominating its orbit. So it's too friendly. It's not enough of a gravitational bully like the planets in our solar system are. So it's now called a dwarf planet, but it's still there.
Great question. I actually see one that's kind of related to that from Christine. It says, how many planets are there? So if we don't consider Pluto a planet anymore, we say there are 8 planets in our solar system. And we saw a number of them, but I'll count them out from closest to the sun to furthest away. We have Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune. So those are the 8 official planets in our solar system. Beyond that, there are lots of other objects as well.
Okay, there's so many questions. Somebody very early on had asked about the black dots. I don't know, Nick, if we ever answered that. I think that's a reference to when we zoomed in on the sun.
Oh,
and it looked like there were some black dots.
Great question. Yeah. So when we zoomed in on the sun, those black dots are what we call sunspots. Kind of easy to remember. Sunspots are areas of a lot of magnetic activity that actually turn out to be a little cooler than the surrounding stuff on the sun. So the rest of the sun is a little hotter than those dark areas that you saw. And they change over time. So those black dots aren't always going to be in the same place.
Okay, and I see a couple of questions. There's one about Pluto. Is Pluto ever visible to us? Not with your unaided eye. So just like going outside, you know, it rises at about 1:45 this morning, but you wouldn't be able to see it. It's just too far away and too dim. You'd need a really amazing telescope to see Pluto. Even the Hubble Space Telescope, if you look up its pictures of Pluto, they're still kind of blurry. We have good pictures of Pluto now because a spacecraft went by it. Not any humans on that spacecraft, but a robotic spacecraft called New Horizons flew past Pluto a few years ago, and we have some really good pictures of it. Okay. And then, Nick, we've got some questions about the fate of the sun. What's going to happen to it in the future? Do you want to get into that?
So, yeah, the sun and all stars have their own lifetimes, but their lifetimes are a lot longer than a human lifetime. We're talking billions of years. And I know some of us have probably heard that number billion before, but it's really hard for us to put into our mind how big a billion is. So let me give you just an example. If you, right at home right now, were to try to count to 1 billion, and you said one number every second, no snack breaks, no bathroom breaks, no nap time, none of that, and you tried to count all the way up to 1 billion, it would take you about 31 years just to get to that number. And that's about how long a billion seconds is. So you could even do your math at home and do a fun math problem to figure out how long that is. So when we talk about billions, we're talking about huge amounts of time. So our sun is about 4.5 billion years old. And that means for stars like the sun, it's about in the middle of its lifetime. So the sun will change, but not for a number of years, another 4.5 billion years before the sun changes. The other good news is the sun is not going to go supernova and turn into a black hole. I know a lot of us might have questions about black holes, and maybe we'll talk about that in a future session, but the sun is not the type of star, it's not big enough to blow up and turn into a black hole. So even though it'll change and that'll make our solar system look different, we don't have to worry about it because we have 4.5 billion years of time.
All right, Nick, I think we're out of time for questions. Thank you, everybody, for, I'm sorry we weren't able to get to every single question. There's so many, but we hope you will join us Thursday, 10 a.m. Eastern. It's called What's Your Sign? It's not about astrology. It'll be about astronomy and why it's worth learning the constellations of the zodiac. And spoiler alert, because that's where you're going to find planets. So if you're very interested in planets, feel free to tune in again on Thursday.
Great. And we had so much fun with you today. If you want more information about programs like this and all of Morehead's virtual programming, check out the Morehead at Home page at www.moreheadplanetarium.org. And if you want to follow us on social media, on Twitter, we're at Morehead Planet. And on Instagram and Facebook, you can look for Morehead Planetarium. So we hope you find some fun things to do with virtual events in the coming days, but we'll see you on Thursday.